Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us at Armadillo Academy this morning. Good to see people joining us here. We've still got a few joining as I start the introductions this morning. Maybe they've just been listening a little bit to some other audio that's apparently on the BBC, but I'm sure you can come back to that one. You'll be getting fed that one for a while to come. So thank you for taking the time this morning to come and join us at Armadillo Academy. We would love to be out there speaking to you face to face. We're not quite at that stage yet, but hopefully moving in the right direction. And Matt Hall and I, my fellow director, were just chatting about the fact that we hope to do that sometime later in the year for people that are comfortable with coming to see us face to face. It would be really good to see everybody once again. In the meantime, hopefully everybody's safe and well, and hopefully you can both see my screen with the Armadillo Academy logo on it and hear me okay, and possibly even understand me okay, especially since I'm going to be doing most of the talking today. The timing for today, we have planned for an hour and a half, just to make that clear at the outset. So hopefully you can put everything else to one side for an hour and a half and give yourself permission to listen to what we have to show you today and see if it feels like it makes sense to you. So with a number of people on the call, on the webinar, the control panel on your right hand side, you will have a questions and answers box that you can use. Everyone's muted at the moment, and it would just be too many voices, I'm sure you can understand. So if you have questions, any comments, feel free to type them in, and we'll keep an eye on that as we go through today. Let's see if my little clicker's working as I want to move on to the next slide, and it's decided drop to. Just a little bit of an agenda as I welcome everybody, just to introduce you a little bit to the philosophy behind Armadillo Academy. I'm going to take you through the 5 key points that you'll see on the screen in front of you, from mindset through tools, training, confidence, all the way through to choices. And I'm going to be ably supported, I hope, by my fellow director, Matt Hall, and our guest today, Ainsley Darby, and I'm going to introduce those two gents to you just shortly. First of all, in case anybody doesn't already know me, just a little bit about myself. My name is Gordon Berry. My background in practice is I took over what was a traditional family accounting practice in 2002, which is going back a bit now, and modernised it and increased the profitability before I actually sold it in 2009. I had qualified as a chartered certified accountant with ACCA in 1994 and a chartered tax advisor in 2004. But actually, my father was a chartered accountant with ICAS, so I was pretty much raised by a CA, almost as a CA. And along the way, I gained some coaching qualifications such as NLP, mindfulness. It was about 2006 onwards. And I also trained with a business advisory group in 2008. And this gave me restless feet somewhat. So I worked, having sold the accountancy firm, I worked as a freelance business advisor to individual businesses, and I still do. I have clients that engaged me as a business advisor for over 10 years ago, and that I still work with, and for whom I never originally did accounts and tax work. That wasn't why they engaged me. And I was asked in late 2015 to come back and help out one of the original networks that had supported me, that happened to be quite local to me, that most of you know. That was originally meant to be part-time. I went in to meet them and discuss something else, and They said they needed some support on something, and I said, yes, okay, if I can keep doing the business advisory stuff that I love doing and was still doing. So when I did that, I hoped to be able to introduce some of the business advisory things that I'd learned along the way to help accountants, to help you build practices that work for you. And of course, things got in the way for the last 5 years, probably, as we all know. But that was my background. That's how I came to be back working with the networks. I'd like to, if I can, introduce my co-director, Matt Hall. Many of you will know Matt. Matt's been majoring on the tax support for members, which is ongoing. Good morning, Matt. Welcome.
Good morning, Gordon. Good morning, Ainsley. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I guess I'm known as the tax guy, and I guess that's been my extensive background. I joined the then Inland Revenue back in far too long ago now, the early 1990s, 1992 from memory. So I guess I've worked in tax a very long time, but along the way, I guess I've collected quite a bit of experience of different ways of doing things within our profession. Worked for 2 of the top 6 firms, Grant Thornton originally, BDO, Stoy Hayward as they were, later became Tenon, and obviously also within boutique businesses, Premier. I've worked for myself on my own for half a dozen years before joining forces with Gordon. I've worked, I would say, the revenue, so in civil service, so a huge breadth and range of experiences. So seeing how to do it well, seeing how to do it badly. I'll let listeners decide where they think I learnt what. And as I said to Gordon a few times, I'm lucky that I haven't been forced back into that big corporate world. I've got choices myself, continue obviously to support all our members and clients on the tax issues, but would like to use some of that experience, some of the things I've learned along the way, some of the connections I've made along the way, to help our members. We'll talk about, I guess, improving practice, but actually really what it boils down to is improving the lives of the people involved in those practices. So you as partners, but also the people that work with and for you as well. And I think given the varied background I've had, I've learned, or I've seen lots of different ways of doing things. And I'd like to be able to think now, and certainly firmly believe now, that I can share the good and also the bad, so that we can all try and do things better going forward. So that's very much the focus of Armadillo Academy going forward, whilst obviously we'll continue with the tax support that we've always done since we started.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I think that's about the longest I've kept you quiet there. We were on to slide 4 before I asked you to speak. Also, waiting patiently to say hello is our friend and guest here today, Ainsley Darby. Again, my clicker just playing games with me a little bit. I met Ainsley a few years ago when we were both members of a network, and Ainsley's been rather busy since then, and I'll let him explain a bit more. Good morning, Ainsley.
Good morning, both. It's great to be here and lovely to see so many people on your web event too, so really excited to be invited and to be a part. And it's nice actually being a guest for a change rather than constantly hosting that I've been doing recently. So it's nice to be able to sit back and see somebody else chat, so that's good too. So I suppose a bit of background in case people don't, who I haven't known through the various networks or met through the various networks over the years. I am, as it says, an accountant. I still am a qualified chartered accountant. I did hand back my practicing certificates when I sold my firm to Crowe almost 3 years ago now, but I am still an accountant. So when I say we and us, it's coming from that place of still wanting to be part of the club. So I hope you don't think, why am I saying we or us when I'm talking about accountants? But yeah, I left KPMG. In KPMG, I specialized in the audit of banks and insurance companies and trust companies. So really exciting stuff. But more latterly, I moved into transaction services, which was their kind of catch-all phrase for special work extra services consulting, but more consulting that related from the audit clients rather than pure consulting work. So we did some really interesting projects. I left KPMG and joined a regional accounting firm in the UK, and at the time it was really compliance focused. And they were, their members of their clients at the time were saying things to the partners like, oh, you don't care about us, you don't love us. And the partners were really upset because they thought they were doing everything on time, accounts and tax returns, chasing the clients for the records, doing them to the best they could and advising them of the correct tax bills. And they just didn't really quite understand that clients were looking for a lot more than that. And over the years, I took that from a compliance-only firm to a niche business advisory firm, and we won a huge number of awards for the way we did business. So particularly culture, marketing, brand, and technology, but not technology for technology's sake. It was more how we introduced technology to deliver a better client experience and better client services. Now, I suppose we became niche business advisory. I had effectively created, I suppose in hindsight, a little mini monster. It became a mini KPMG, and that was very difficult to scale. And for years, we've known this challenge in scaling advisory and implementing advisory across more than your top 10 or 20% of clients. So we all get that accountants, do great work for their top 10, 20% of clients inherently, whether it's with bespoke offering, whether it's ad hoc services, they are definitely looked after. But for the large tranche of the clients, we're just doing an accounts and tax return service. And that was my aim, to set out to change that and make a difference, to help more small business owners, to empower accountants to do that. And that's why I set up Clarity.
Very good, thank you, Ainsley. So you and I have had similar experiences in introducing business advisory to people and about it in slightly different ways. And we'll come back to the importance of the practice in doing that. But clearly between the three of us, we've got a broad range of experience. And hopefully if anybody does have any questions today, we'll be able to answer that between the three of us. I'd like to start, if I can just move on to the next slide. Though by discussing some of the biggest issues facing accountants right now, and how that impacts profits, and is it really any different from what it's always been, or has the world changed at all, other than what we've all been through the last 12 months, how does that impact, etc. So I've got 6 images on the slide in front of you, hopefully, and the first one really talks about is there not enough time? Are we still busy fools with low value work, or is your business thriving? Are we harassed, stressed, no time for family in the office, or is your world quite different from that? The second one, I can remember when I first became a partner, somebody said to me, well, there's no more holidays anymore, son. There's an average of about 300 clients per partner. And if they all have one huge problem, panic, emergency per year, then that's pretty much an average of 1 a day for you. So the third one is, too much profit. Are we working with the right people, making the right returns? We know, we'll be familiar with the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle. 80% of your problems probably come from 20% of the clients. Unfortunately, 80% of your profits probably come from a different 20%. Now, I'm not suggesting that you focus all your time on the right clients. I wouldn't tell you to do that. The fourth one is, something I come across, whether it's our own businesses or whether it's all the different businesses that I've spoken to over the years, is getting the right people in the right seats and keeping them motivated and engaged. Often business owners will complain to me that the team just don't have the same commitment or whatever, but we have to recognize, I think, that people want to do meaningful work and be trained to do it well. And often our challenge is that there's no time or systems to train them. So they just pick it up by osmosis almost, which can bring its own challenges. And unfortunately, oftentimes that leads to people getting fed up. The fifth one, again, be aware, compliance is often fee pressured. It's largely a grudge purchase. And where's it going now? How will MTD, for example, impact that? And the sixth one is how difficult it is to set yourself apart. A lot of the people on the call will have been in different networks and learned lots over the years, but I think it's a constant challenge. Some have done it very well. Some of us have got little bits where we're able to set ourselves apart, but we're continually learning. And some of the stuff that we learned years ago is always worth revisiting. And things have changed slightly. I was looking at something this morning about bookkeeping software offering submission of accounts and tax returns. How does that impact on us? So I'd like to, if I can, launch
Gordon,
a short
can I just add?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Gordon, can I just add something on that competition point? It's something I was reading this morning. I think it was Liz Truss, the government minister, talking about the working from home is going to aid the levelling up of the UK. Obviously, people will no longer have to be necessarily dragged into offices in major city centres, etc. I think what that means for a lot of smaller professional services firms is that their people and their clients, but certainly their people, will now be targets potentially for much larger competitors, because people won't necessarily have to go and work in London or Birmingham or Manchester or Edinburgh or Bristol or wherever to work for a big firm if firms are saying you can work from home a lot more. So I think the competition that we've faced as professionals, for smaller firms, local firms, has generally been local or regional competition. I think that might change in the next 12 months or so, not just for clients, but for our people as well.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, people able to spend more time working from home and doing things remotely means that some of the geographical problems are not the same as they were in the past. So there might be different opportunities open to people. Any thoughts, Ainsley?
I completely agree. I think there's an interesting change in competition. Competition has always been, I think, quite tough in the accounting world. It's difficult to stand out from the crowd, and that's been what a lot of people have been trying to do over the years. And I've also seen the bigger firms like KPMG and PwC launch My Finance Partner and KPMG Small Business, and they've had varying degrees of success or not success in doing so. Yeah. But I have seen those that are just in the next rung down that have just started to launch a lot of advisory services and support services around the smaller business client base. And I think that'll be an interesting move from a competition perspective as well. I think maybe, as Matt's suggesting, with the spread of the workforce and the access to cloud accounting tools now, it's made it easier for some of those firms to be able to get into that area. And it's interesting, actually, when you look at the stats for the number of companies in the UK and how they rank, how they segment on the basis of employee numbers, and you compare that to the accounting firms in the same categories, and you can clearly see that those bigger firms can't grow much more than they're doing, other than by delivering en masse, on scale services to those smaller clients. So there will inevitably be a push into that space, I think.
Yeah, okay, good points. Hopefully people will see that I've put a poll on the screen for them. In the past, I've found that some people are able to fill it in and some not. I'm not sure, it depends on your browser or what, but if you can see that, if you can fill it in, complete the poll. I'll just give it a couple of minutes more to see if there's further responses in, and I'll share the poll. If there are things on there that you think are a huge issue that we haven't commented on, then by all means put them in the chat box, in the questions and answers box, and we're happy to discuss them. But these were just some of the main challenges that I thought were not only traditional but are still troubling us, still challenges to us as accountants. Let me close the poll now if I can. I've got about 67% of the people have been able to respond. Let me close the poll and see if I can share that with everybody. Hopefully appearing on your screen now. looks like.
Yep.
So it's pretty evenly spread across most things, with fee resistance still being the big one. There's still an element of traditional compliance services, I think, encountering a lot of fee resistance. Sorry, you were going to say?
I was just going to say there's entirely deliberately, there's a couple of the points there that are linked. So fee resistance and competition must go to an extent hand in hand. You know, clients reluctant to pay a value-based fee, or a fee for what they see, as you've described, as a grudge purchase, because they think they can get that, or they can get that from somewhere else. So how do you set yourself apart from the competition? And most interestingly, I think for me, given that the getting the right people is the lowest answer, I think that is directly linked to time. Ultimately, the work pressures that we face in our own businesses we tend to take them on ourselves, don't we? We tend to think, well, if something needs doing, I'm going to have to do it myself. If the deadline needs to be met and it doesn't look like we're going to get there, I'm going to have to do it myself. That, I think, is often a result of difficulties in getting the right people. But actually, I would go further than that. That is often actually a result of the fact that the people that you have don't necessarily have the skills or maybe the mindset, but the skills and the training needed to take some of that off your shoulders. And that's clearly something we'll talk about shortly. And the pricing, etc. Ainsley, I know we'll come on to the clarity tools, etc., to talk about how that helps. So I think the point I was really just going to say is that there's a couple of those that I think are linked quite closely together, and it's quite interesting to see there's quite a different percentage that have marked them perhaps as their primary concern, but as they add them together, I think there's some interesting sort of insight there.
Yeah, very good. Okay, what I want to come on to then is talking a little bit about, first of all, mindset, really, because that's where it starts. We've heard the expression, I think we've all heard the expression, to keep doing the same thing and expecting different results is one definition of insanity. So I'd like to work through the 5 points we have on the screen in front of us. Hopefully the screen is back. Yes, I think so. Starting with mindset. I've actually been doing a number of well-being webinars over the last 12 months, since April, May last year. My motivation for it is really driven by my own experiences, if I can share that with you, if that's okay. As I've said, my father before me was a chartered accountant. As a young lad, I well remember him initially building his practice from home, doing it all himself, as you've said, Matt, and then getting an office, but still regularly bringing his work home with him and working well into the evening. He might lay his work aside for a few minutes to have his dinner on his lap while he watches the news, because in those days you only got it on the 6 o'clock news, I think it was. But for him, it was all work and no play, and it wasn't ideal for us as kids either. I have an older brother and a younger sister, and I eventually went to work for my father in his accountancy firm. I had wanted to go and study philosophy and psychology at university, but everyone told me, well, that's a bit weird. What are you going to do with that sort of degree? You better go and do something sensible like your dad, become an accountant. Great career. So I did. My father unfortunately took unwell at the age of 60. He took a stroke. And I'm quite convinced in my own mind it was due, at least in part, to the pressures that he took on, running the practice, trying to do so much himself. He had a big team, but he was still trying to do a huge amount himself. And unfortunately, I mean, he'd lived for another 10 years, but he had no speech. The brain still worked largely, but he couldn't communicate. So he never got to enjoy his retirement years. And that experience took me back to studying philosophy and psychology. As someone now trained in mindfulness, meditation, NLP, hypnosis, and some other things, I've been developing, along with running these wellbeing sessions, developing a program for Armadillo members aimed at individuals, but of course also about the well-being of the firm. Peak performance in our industry requires a calm mind. A deadline might motivate us and get us moving in the right circumstances, but the work itself generally requires a calm mind. A clear mind leads to better judgment, better outcomes. The body's response to stress is to move the blood supply away from the forebrain, from the thinking brain, and send it to the extremities, the arms and legs. That's the fight or flight response, as we refer to. So it's an inbuilt human response to perceived stress, but it takes the blood supply away from the thinking brain. You literally can't think clearly. The body's basically saying, act first, think later. Let's fight the perceived threat, and we'll come back to thinking about it once it's passed. And it also, ironically, takes the blood supply away from the immune system, which is not particularly helpful. And you've witnessed it in your clients, in your team. When people are under stress, they don't think clearly and they don't perform well. And a happy, calm person makes better decisions. The worry, stress, anxiety can impact negatively on individuals and hinder their ability to perform, and you have problems like absenteeism. So part of what I share with business owners and individuals that I speak to is what I refer to as the 3 mandates of a leader. 1, see it as it is, but not worse than it is. 2, be able to picture it better than it is. And then 3, take massive action to make it the way you see it. Quite simple, really. And it's incumbent on us, I think, as leaders to have a vision and be able to lead, motivate, inspire others. If we get bogged down in the day-to-day work, we simply can't be leading, motivating, inspiring. If we're not helping our team develop more than just their technical skills, then we're probably not inspiring them. If they don't know what the game is, if they've no idea what the score is, and they just don't understand the game plan and objectives and where we're trying to get to, how can we expect them to give their all when the game goes into overtime? Or they just get up and leave come 5 o'clock? Why would they stay and not just change team? So we need to have a clear mind and a game plan. And we need a team with a clear mind, clear objectives, guidelines, good all-round skills, not just technical. It's important, of course, to keep yourself moving forward and motivated. And how do you do that? The universe likes action, but first you have to visualize something before you can achieve it. If you can't see it in your mind, then you're going to struggle to achieve it. And then after that, it's up to you to take action. When people say to you, I can't see how this is going to work, or I can't see a way forward, they literally mean it. They can't get a picture in their head. And until you get a picture, it's difficult to motivate yourself. It's difficult to see the way forward, literally. Now, the universe would like to meet you halfway. It's not just going to come to you. As I said, see it as it is, but not worse than it is. Be able to picture it better than it is, and then take massive action to make it the way you want to see it. And that belief in the potential drives the action, which creates the result, which feeds the belief, and we start to create a loop and momentum. If you think about it, every decision you make, you're either moving away from pain or towards pleasure. And sometimes we need the pain a little bit just to get ourselves up off our butts and moving, but only if we're moving in the right direction. Your clients are exactly the same, and they're looking for your help to develop their vision. So, as I said, when I took over my father's firm, it was a very traditional firm, straight compliance work, and I had to do something to move it forward. There were about 12 members of staff to feed and myself. And all his clients, of course, had been his age. It's just the way it works. So I had to win fresh clients, but also new, fresh work from the clients I had. And thankfully, around that time, I joined a network and started to look around at other trainings and joined a group similar to Action Coach and trained with them for a while. I went back to my psychology training. When I spoke to those traditional clients, been with my father for many years, I had some challenges you might recognise. They were very set in what they expected from their accountant, with some traditional compliance work. And they were also very set in how little they should have to pay for it. I had conversations along the line of stuff, no son, I agreed to fee with your father 30 years ago.
It's still shilling and pence, Gordon.
Yeah, quite. It was challenging. You know, I make no bones about it. It was pretty challenging, but I learned a lot. What I realised was that I needed to help the clients paint a picture in their head of where they are now and where they would really love to be, where they would like to get to. I had to get them thinking about that and picturing it. And then I had to get them to believe it was possible. And that meant creating a bridge from where they were to where they were trying to get to. If I couldn't do either of those two things, then they generally just said to me, nah, son, just make the tax go away. If I can get them thinking about that, you can literally see the change in them, almost like the weight lifting from their shoulders as they started to picture it in their own head and believe it's possible. And the way I did that back then was just with a sensitivity spreadsheet. And it measured the increase in, you know, the old traditional 4 ways to grow that we all learned a number of years ago. But it cleverly extrapolated from that, the compound growth of these small incremental steps that the client could take. And it also showed them the impact of doing the reverse, the negative impact that could happen, because if they weren't growing, they were potentially dying. I used spinners in an Excel spreadsheet and measured the increase and decrease in profits if we reduce costs, or increase and decrease in profits if we increase the number of customers or increase the margin, these kind of things. You remember that stuff. Oh, I've just lost my picture. Is everybody still with me?
Yep.
Yep. Sorry, my picture disappeared and came back again there. So that was how I did it when I was running the accountancy firm.
Gordon, I think if I, you know, we talked about this the other day, and just to try and put it in a sort of a non-professional context, as is my one, I relate it back to sport. The easiest way we can all see how people at the top of their, whatever that profession might be, is how they visualize success and the results that brings. If anyone watches top golfers these days, they're always visualizing the shot before they play it. You could go right back to Johnny Wilkinson for the rugby fans, of how he used to sort of stand over his kicks and stand there, and Farrell does it, and all the goal kickers these days do it. They're mentally picturing the ball moving from one place to another. They're mentally picturing it going between the posts and achieving their objective, their goal. And obviously then when they do that successfully, that feeds their belief that then is the right behavior to adopt. And that's it in a nutshell, that you can, you know, turn your TV on, put the sports channels on and see it. People have reached the very top of a very different profession, but how they use that to be successful. And I think it's vitally important that we, as people involved in businesses, whether it's our own business or obviously helping our clients, are able to see that for ourselves, to recognize where we are today, to picture where we want to get to, and to have a vision of how you get there. But realistically, that's how you need to help your clients. And I firmly believe that if you can do that, the perceived grudge purchase of compliance services is no longer seen as a grudge purchase, because actually it's just a step along that path, along that vision, to help them to get to where they want to get to. And if you can do that, then it will help your practice achieve exactly the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm about to come on to matters such as that, because we aren't saying compliance is dead. And I actually have a slide just shortly. I'm going to invite Ainsley to talk with me on that. You're spot on, Matt. I think one of the challenges for us in the accountancy industry, sorry about jumping back and forth slides there, my screen was playing up a little, but one of the challenges for us is that we're traditionally, as accountants, anti-sales. One of the reasons that the clients trust us, and we're always at the top of the list as trusted advisors, is because we're not constantly trying to sell them something. And of course, our staff will tend to have similar negative connotations around the idea of selling, because maybe perceive selling as something that's done to someone. But we do need to reframe it slightly to ourselves and recognize that this is actually about showing people something that would benefit them and then allowing them the option to buy if they wish. When people can see and visualize the possibilities for their business, they literally try it on like a coat. And if they feel comfortable, then they'll buy. The last part of every buying decision you have is something along the lines of, how do you feel about that? You might look at something, you might listen to something, you might research it, but ultimately you say to yourself something to the effect of, how do I feel about that? And if they're comfortable, they'll buy it. And if they're not, they won't. And if we want to be the guru to help them along the way, then we need to have done the hard yards ourselves as well. There's no point telling your clients to consider this if we're not prepared to do it for ourselves. The good news is that Ainsley and his team at Clarity have built a system that's modernized what I used to do many years ago. They're going to make the process much easier for you. That process allows you to take clients up to date, live data. I used to have to use pretty old historical information to get the conversation started, but we've got the option here with modern technology to update what I used to do. And the software as well helps you flex the system and help the client see the pictures, see what point A and what point B look like, and potentially how to get there. And also comes with an inbuilt library of support to allow your team to work with the client and take the steps rather than just you all the time. So you're not selling anything, you're demonstrating an opportunity to the client, and if they like it, they'll sell themselves. Bringing Ainsley in at this point as we move to the next slide. Ainsley, I mean, the first thing I said on that slide there is we're not saying compliance is dead. We just, yeah, go on.
Yeah, no, I think for so long we've been told as accountants and in the accounting industry, compliance is dead, you need to move to advisory, advisory is where it's at. That hasn't happened for the last 15, 20 years or 30 years. I think it goes back even further. And small business owners are always going to want assurance over the raft of legislation and regulations that are coming, and we've seen that in the last 12 months. So, and with MTD to come. So I don't see compliance ever being dead, and it's never a question of compliance being dead. But it is a question of how do we get the right revenue mix for our accounting firm so that we're creating the right profitability, the right income to be able to support the right level of team. So it's, for most of us, how do we combine compliance and advisory to deliver a better firm, a more fun firm to work for, a more exciting place to be, and a more profitable place too. So it is definitely not us saying compliance is dead. It definitely isn't dead, but it's about how do we mix the two together. And interestingly, when I was in practice, we had a few clients that were advisory only clients, and they tended to be less stickier than those clients that were compliance and advisory. And so by doing the compliance, it's a great funnel, and it does demonstrate the trust, and it does build the trust, and it does make them stickier clients when you're doing both the compliance and the advisory. So good point, compliance ain't dead.
Yeah, I don't know what your own experience was, but when I sold the firm just to do advisory, there were definitely times over the years where I wish I still had that funnel. And if I could do it all again, I would make sure I had the accountancy firm behind it, but that I was concentrating on the right things and the right relationships where possible. Compliance isn't dead, but it might be killing your growth. And the traditional interaction with clients on compliance put us in a certain box. I think that we had 30 years before I even got there with my father, it put us in a certain box that we struggled to get out of, which is why I changed at the time. But if I'd known then what I know now, I probably would have done it slightly differently. So the compliance feeds the hopper. This, Ainsley, I've borrowed this slide from yourself. This is how you've been explaining it to the people you've been working with. You want to take us through this a little bit, if that's okay?
Absolutely. I think, and to put a little bit of context behind this. So there's lots of firms that have tried advisory in the past, and they've tried to deliver, I suppose, effectively a big 4, top 10, top 50 service line to small businesses. And by delivering that to small businesses, it inevitably requires the top quality team members or the highest level of team in your firm. It involves generally a bespoke service, and it is inevitably costly. So when we see clients are resistant to advisory fees, it's often because we've taken this model and we've just said, here you go, we're going to do this for you. And I think that's why people have struggled with advisory in the past. I also think that people struggle with advisory because they go straight through to solution. So as accountants, we're great problem solvers. That's one of our skill sets. And when we say to a client, what you need is a cash flow projection, what you need is management accounts, or what you need is a KPI dashboard, the client is thinking, do I? I don't know that I do. How much is that going to cost me? And so selling management reporting or cash flow forecasting or KPI dashboards or reports just doesn't work. We're jumping straight through to solution. And that's that other really interesting point that Matt made. We've often been told in accounting, oh, it's sat nav for business is what you need to talk about. You know where you are, which is point A, you know where you want to get to, point B, and then it's just plotting a route between A and B, breaking it down into manageable bite-sized chunks, and then off you go. Well, as you've rightly pointed out, lots of people don't know where B is. And that's the huge, important bit of the puzzle, is helping people understand where B is. So yeah, this is, I suppose, why we've got on so well together, not in the past, because we had so much common, I suppose, background and understandings, but even where we see how you do this is such a similar way. So this is about taking the client with you. This is not about jumping straight through to solution. And this isn't about delivering something that's the big firms do and just saying, here you go, small business, this is what we're going to do for you too, because yes, absolutely, that's costly. This is about creating something that's scaled down, that's deliverable by more of the team, so you can get more of the team involved, because what we're talking about here isn't going to be rocket science. It's not stuff that all of us aren't inherently capable and qualified in delivering here. This is about taking the service line down a notch. It's about delivering it in a way that's very profitable for the firm, yet valuable for the small business owner, but at a price that they can afford to pay. So that's the win-win-win scenario. This isn't about us selling, and I agree with you. We should be thinking upserve rather than upsell. There's a wonderful story. I know I'm going off track, and you will have to shut me up, and I don't mind if you shut me off, but you know, there's this one lovely story I'd like to say, first of all, is that there's a story about this optician. Sorry, this guy that was, he worked for the Opticians Association, and he was sent out to see how they were getting on, what they were recommending, and to just do a kind of an initial review of how opticians were selling tests and how they were performing from a client service perspective. And he'd gone through a number of opticians, and everyone sold him the basic test. So it was, yes, this is what you need. Yeah, you know, the $9.99, off you go, and we'll do your eyes, and that'll be, you know, perfectly done. And so he'd been through a number of these, one after the other, and nobody tried to talk to him about any other issues or challenges. And he got to this last optician. Well, it's last because you'll understand why in the story it's his last optician. He got to the optician, and the optician took him through the different options that were available, talked about the benefits, talked about the what would be better for that person, and why some of the existing tests really didn't help diagnose underlying conditions. So they went. So he said, great, thinking this is great, at least one person's doing it. So he bought their top eye test, went in for that eye test, and in the middle of the test, the optician said, can you just stay there, please? I need to stop the test. I think I've identified an issue with your eyes. I want you to stay calm, but I'm just going to phone an ambulance. We need to get you to hospital as soon as we can. Now, stay calm when I'm phoning an ambulance. I mean, I don't know how you stay calm. But the guy was saying, no, sorry, don't worry. I've just gone through about 50 eye tests in the last week. There's, you know, it's probably my eyes are tired. Don't worry about it. That's probably the reason why you're thinking there's a challenge. And the optician said, no, you've got a retina that's detaching, and I need you to get you to hospital now so that we can save your eyesight, not let you go blind. And they got him to hospital and they saved the retina, and it didn't detach, and he has his eyesight because of that optician delivering the more expensive eye test, the one that actually detected the underlying issues, not selling the cheaper service that didn't do that. So I think, I'm not being preachy, by the way, but I'm just trying to say it's about up-serving, not upselling.
Yeah, so rather than just everybody else following their system of this is all we've got for you to settle, as it were, is our eye test. Somebody actually took the time to understand the client's needs, as it were.
Exactly.
I think with our own services, Ainsley, I mean, it's so often the case that the clients are looking at what gets produced and saying, well, how much did I spend on that? How much time do we actually spend getting behind it and speaking to the client and understanding their dreams and their vision for where they want to take their business? And this is a big part of what we're trying to do here. Engage the client with that.
Yep, absolutely. It's about that A to B and that bridge. So it's understanding where your clients are now. And you talked about up-to-date data. Well, we can still use old data. So if you're worried about data quality, it's helpful to have up-to-date data from a continuous loop perspective. But when you start, just to get started, a starting point, a year-end data is good data, because hopefully you've done a great job on that year-end accounts. So it's a great place to start in the absence of you having live up-to-date data. So never let data be an issue in starting the conversation with your client. You've always got a good starting point to kick off from. So it's about helping the clients and stripping back the complexity. Now this framework here is the same framework that's used by wealth management consultancy, tax advisory, any marketing advisory, any type of advisory effectively follows the same process. We always need to know where we're starting from, where we could or should get to, what that gap is, creating plans to close the gap, and then measure, monitor results versus the plan. Now, most accountants focus in the plans, and when they focus in plans, they focus on one of the plans. That's the financial plan or the P&L budget. And then they focus on the KPI reporting, management reporting dashboards. This is about how do we help the client all the way through the journey so that they can understand what's possible and how to get there. So very simply, where are my clients now? Where could they or should they get to? And this is about helping them envisage a better future. You did sensitivity analysis, we do sensitivity analysis, and it's a great visual way of engaging the client, co-creating with them, giving them the control, and giving them the input and the ability to determine that potential future. So that's a very important stage in helping understand where B can be. And then obviously the gap analysis is easy for us as accountants. We understand A minus B equals C or X or Y, whatever the equation might be. And that bit's good. But the beauty that we give as accountants here is the critical thinking on that gap. It's all very well for the client to say, oh, I'm going to double my profits this year, or I'm going to double my revenue. Well, you've been growing at 5% per annum for the last 30 years. It's possible you're going to double your profit, your revenue this year, but how is that going to be? What's going to happen to make that? What are you going to do differently that's going to make that happen? So the critical thinking is where we bring our wonder skills as an accountant to that gap analysis, but also the ability to break down that gap into areas of focus, because this is what it's about. We can understand which areas are going to have the biggest impact on profit and which areas are going to have the biggest impact on cash. And so we can help that client focus in on those key levers within their business and understand which ones are going to have the biggest impact. And I think that's really a great ability for accountants to be able to help with. And as we said, that plans, I mean, I think a financial plan or a budget or cash flow forecast or whatever you want to call it, there's different types, I agree. There's 3-way and 4-way now, and God knows how many other ways they're going to create. In reality, a P&L budget, or breaking down from where we are now to where we're going to get to, and doing it over a 12-month or a 6-month or a 5-year is great. but without an action plan to go with it, clients get lost. So this is about how do we help them understand what actions drive what levers in their business, what levers drive what results, and what effectively they need to be doing to increase their profit and cash position. And when we have that action plan with them, that who is going to do what by when, it doesn't have to be any more focused than who, what, when, then we can help them understand and keep them accountable. Because this is the beauty about accountants. It's in our name, accountability, accountants. Accountability is that secret sauce. And studies show that if you have written goals as a small business owner and are held accountable, you'll achieve 78% more. Well, can you imagine if the accountant is working with that business owner to focus in on the right actions to be taken to start with? Well, it still might be 78%, but it's 78% of a hell of a focused action plan. And so I think the results can be really quite stonky. And then the end bit obviously is the measuring and monitoring, which we're great at. But rather than over-focus on management reporting, a great tool to just look at with small business owners on a regular basis is budget versus actual. And ask the questions, why is there a difference? If there's a difference and there's a challenge, what are we going to do about it? So have you done something you shouldn't have done? Have you not done something you should have done? Have you done something and it's not worked and we need to think about something else? Or are we just cookie and we need to change the plan? So that's the type of conversation that we need to be having on a regular basis. And that's that getting the client to understand the value. And that's what we can show them with that gap analysis. We can create that quantifiable value proposition.
Yeah. So you're saying the same thing about where they're at, where they're trying to get to, the steps in between. And then you're giving the accountant the tools to be the guide to help them get there. But it's the client that's decided where they're trying to get to. So they're engaged with it, they're bought into it.
Indeed, and we always, I think, have this, I suppose, fear of failure as accountants, and we have this imposter syndrome. We couldn't possibly help small businesses, or we couldn't possibly advise them. Oh, I'm not a management guru, I'm not a consultant. Well, we don't need to be. We just need to engage with the client, ask the right questions, help them understand what's possible, and help them understand what actions they need to take to get there. They really know the answers.
Yeah.
And they've got a better understanding of their business probably than we could ever have. It's about engaging them, taking them out of their mindset, their day-to-day, and giving them the opportunity to think about what's possible. And then, as you said, it's that constant ability to measure budget, to measure as we're going along. And when we lack confidence, it's because of fear of failure or fear of the unknown. Well, we can give them that certainty. And as you said, I love that success cycle. I mean, that's effectively what we've worked with in Clarity too, because it's about giving that certainty and belief. And we can only do that when we can take away the fear. And if we're constantly helping them understand what decisions they're taking and the impact of those decisions and what's happening almost real time, then we can stop it, or we can do more of it. And we can help the client stop it or do more of it. So that's that's like, it doesn't have to be more rocket science or complicated than that. Just by being there, being that safe environment for business owners to share their issues and challenges, and just by guiding them, as you say, and helping them understand the financial impact of their decisions, we've done our job. I mean, that's game changing for that small business.
Absolutely.
Matt, I was just going to say, I liken this, and I think it's an analogy you've used before, Gordon. This, if you try and skip this middle part, and just jump straight to the end of, well, if you increase turnover by 10%, it will do this. If you don't help them fill in the gaps and build that picture of how they get from where they are today to where they want to be, and it might not be financially driven, it might be other things, but if you don't work with them to paint that picture, when you present the picture at the end, it might not be the picture they wanted. They won't attribute the same value to it because they've not been engaged and involved in the process. And that's when you meet the fee resistance, the price sensitivity. I like it, or you've likened it before, and I can definitely relate to this as a father of 3 boys. It's the same as you stick a toddler in the car. They don't know where they're going. They don't know how long it's going to take. They don't know how they're going to get there. They don't even know if they want to be there when they get there. So all the way along, you're getting, are we nearly there yet? Do we have to do this? You're constantly getting that sort of negative feedback, if you like, that resistance. Because you might know where you're going, or you hopefully do. You're driving the car. You know where you think the toddler wants to go to, or the client. But if you don't engage them in the process, if it's actually not really driven by them but helped by you, with you helping them paint that, how do we get from here to here? and filling all of the stuff in the middle. That's my experience of when you get that resistance of, well, I'm not quite sure it's what, and we've had it, Gordon, haven't we, in our own business, in something we've been doing as a project more recently, where we've been engaging somebody, and Gordon and I think it's safe to say we're not completely convinced that we've got to where we thought we were going to go to, or that where we wanted to go to, and then all of a sudden, hold on a minute, I'm not sure I'm going to pay for that.
Yeah.
And that's why it's vital to be involved at each of the steps, the 4 steps on the 5 steps on the previous slide. Use these numbers, use the tools, but you've got to be engaged in the process. Well, crucially, and I think this is a point you made earlier, Ainsley, this isn't a tool that's meant to suck more time of the business owner, of you, of the person, the partner, the person running the practice. It's actually a tool that your teams, the people that you work with, that work for you, can use. And it's then about empowering them with the skills, the confidence, and some training we'll come on to use this to actually take some of that off your desk. And then you'll get less fee resistance. You maybe get more opportunities to upsell or up advise, however you want to describe it. I always have a theory within big firms, you would have been the same at KPMG as an auditor. My guess is when you were doing the audit of the banks, you would have spent far more time at the banks meeting the people involved in the finance function than the audit partners. Ultimately, the people in our businesses, in practice, that spend often the most time with our clients, not ourselves. Who might, we might rock up once a year for the annual accounts meeting or a tax player, but for us, might have gone to a tax planning meeting every 6 months. But actually, it's the people on the ground, it's our staff that spend most time with those clients, that build relationships. It's about then giving them the tools and the ability and confidence to use them to help the clients and take some stuff off your desk, and then grow the client's business and your own.
Empower the team. Yeah, absolutely. And my experience as well in working with it is that the accountant still got the pushback annually on the accounts fee, but included within the accounts was my fee, which was several times the accounts fee, and no resistance whatsoever. But the Clarity tool can help scale this in different ways, Ainsley, that you've showed me before, I believe, so that clients could get as engaged or not as they like, which helps then allow the team to work with clients at different levels, and the partner to be involved where appropriate. So you're empowering the team as well.
Yeah, we're not trying to say partners shouldn't get involved in this at all. What we're saying is that partners have been heavily involved in advisory probably in the past, or if you're not, then this is a great tool for you to use to be able to do it in a repeatable, consistent way. If you're a partner like me that was running from one meeting to the next, grabbing the file as you were running out of the office into the next meeting, not really, and having to work on the fly, which we get quite good at doing, this would have given me a more structured process. But in addition, it would have given me the output that I could have got the rest of the team involved with, so that I wasn't having bits falling in between, and there were next steps that everybody knew what those next steps were. So as a partner, I would certainly have got involved. But as you say, this is about creating a repeatable, consistent way, a framework for the entire team. They all know how they're going to do it here. They all do it the same way every time. And it's about stripping out that complexity. It's about making it simple for the team, but making it simple for the business owner. We forget that they don't understand numbers. We forget that we have that ability way more to read the impact of numbers and what they're saying about. We need to be taking our clients in a way that works for them, and small business owners are flapping. They're drowning in information. It's coming at them from all sides. They're really, struggling to deal with the day-to-day and deal with all the information that's coming at them. We need to be stripping back that complexity and giving them bite-sized pieces of information so that they can take action, not flooding them with more information that they don't understand. So this is definitely empowering the team to take the time off the partners and to get everybody engaged and involved in delivering this, because there will be certain clients will suit different team members, and different sizes will suit different calibers of team, and this effectively enables you to get out to that 60-80% of clients that are looking for more from you. and do it in a way that actually is profitable for the firm, but valuable and affordable for that small business owner. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I like the fact that you've got a whole library of resources there to help empower the team members that I'm aware of, and we can maybe come back.
Can I just say that, because we, like, lots of people just say, oh, here's a tool. Well, the tool in itself might be wonderful, but it's irrelevant if you haven't got the right systems and processes around it, and you haven't got the right education and how do I make this work? So this is like, we've built by accountants for accountants. How do we make this work in practice? How do we get it so that the team are involved? And like you, we had a highly systemized practice, and everything in the firm was systemized. And so we brought that level of systemization to the introduction and the delivery and the scaling of this. And we have different education programs at different stages of a firm's development, because you and I both know education is critical. It's not just about, here's a piece of kit, off you go. This is, no, how, let's properly plan this. Let's do this ourselves. Let's properly plan this for our team. Let's understand what we want to achieve, where we want to get to, what are we looking to make, and how are we going to make this happen?
Absolutely. And of course, hopefully the slide you can see in front of you now is one last bit I want to touch on it, Ainsley, if I can, because I'm familiar with the old Wally video that some of the members will remember, where I think the reference to FTI came in, failure to implement. You come along to a webinar like this or a seminar event, we get some great ideas, we get really motivated, we can suddenly see what we need to do, and then we go back to the office, and things get in the road. So again, you've got a system here that makes sure that people are held accountable and things actually get done, and make sure, let's be frank, that the partner doesn't become the bottleneck.
Yep, absolutely. So we've touched on that accountability, and again, I'll say this again, it's in your name. We're the ideal people to be able to keep our clients accountable, and this is this creating focus. So understanding and involving the client in the focus of why it's important, and as Matt was said, why we're going on this journey in the first place to our toddler, getting them to understand what the focus is and why the focus is on these areas. It's then understanding what they need to do, who's going to do it, and when's it going to be done by. And this goes for us as accountants as well. Like who, what, whens, we used to use them at table. Never had long minutes of meetings. It was always at the end of a meeting, we had a list of actions, who is going to do what by what date. And that enables you to be able to keep and hold people accountable and to drive action and to drive results. So 100%, we believe in empowering the accountant to be able to hold that client accountable.
Brilliant, absolutely. I'm sure that a number of us could look around at ourselves and realise that we've got tools and equipment, or maybe on our computer, that we just never use because other things get in the road. So this actually implementing it is key, and it's great that you've got a system within the Clarity system to help them do that.
Shelfware is what I've heard that's being referred to. It's not software anymore, it's shelfware.
Never heard that before. Very good. I'd like to come on then to the training part of it, if I can. I've got a quote here for myself in my own notes. It said, no one can whistle a symphony. It takes a whole orchestra to play it. The team is so important. Investing in your team has the potential to improve your business, the right sort of investment in your team. It's amazing how much time and energy we spend on technical skills, but we skip over, or tended to skip over, the behavioural skills that can make the world a difference. My own experience, I've been frustrated in the past with difficulty in communicating successfully with others, or we expect team members to just develop the right skills and personal impact and communication skills, and yet I've seen conversations that people have had over the years where they've almost chased work out the door. I've been at networking meetings with team members from other firms, and I just stand back in amazement. I think they don't know what's coming out their mouth next, and there's no real thought process behind it, no training behind it, and yet they're probably perfectly good at the technical skills. So the right skills to build relationships and interactions and win more work is a huge part of what we do, and yet all our training, or all the training that we tend to see as accountants, is on technical skills, and
I was always, Gordon, if I could just, I mean, I was always told when I was at the bigger firms, so at both Grant Thornton and BDO, that people were either good at, they were either technical, you know, you were either a techie geek, hello,
Yeah.
or you could build relationships, develop relationships with clients. You were a good people person, you could lead, you could manage. Well, that might be wrong, but I thought I was good at both. I think within the bigger firms, and it's perhaps a similar mentality, there's a traditional view within our profession that you're one or the other. I think that's wrong, but I think fundamentally as a profession, we spend a huge amount of time and money training people fresh out of university or college or straight from A levels in my case, or maybe someone on a career change, however, but we spend a huge amount of time and money training them with their technical skills. We send them on all the institute courses, we make them sit their exams, and training programs cost, obviously in big firms, huge sums of money, but in smaller firms, proportionately, that's an even bigger sum of money. It's an even more important investment in people. So firms don't expect people to have these technical skills when they arrive. They don't expect them to know, in my case, the Inheritance Taxes Act, or they don't expect them to know FRS 5 or FRS 12 or whatever. So they train them, and yet somehow there's almost an expectation in a lot of firms that people will pick up along the way the behaviours and skills necessary to help them in all other aspects of the profession, to help them engender relationships with clients, to help them develop relationships with intermediaries and other clients. And some of the bigger firms are as guilty of this as any. There isn't the same investment in the sort of behavioural skills as there is in technical. I firmly believe that anybody can do both, or almost anybody can do both. If you give them the right skills and the right training to do that. You can't take someone from university and expect them to pick up all of the behaviours that are needed to be good business advisors, for want of a better description. You have to coach them and train them, and clearly that's been very difficult over the last 12 months. I was lucky to learn off two very different people. Those who know me a long time will probably know who I mean when I say one was probably the most technical spod you could imagine, who would very happily stand in front of 1,000 people and explain something deeply technical. But the idea of sending him to go and see a client and have a conversation about, some additional services, or God forbid, an invoice, and he would fall apart on his own admission. And another guy who didn't really have an eye for the detail, wasn't particularly minded or interested in all of that, but could sell yellow snow to Eskimos. And you pick up the good and the bad from different people, and you learn from the people around you, and that has been exceptionally difficult, hasn't it, over the last year or so. So hence this program, hopefully, to try and help bridge that gap.
What brought us onto this program, of course, actually was you speaking to me about your experiences, Matt, which related to my frustration with, you come through the accountancy firm, you generally progress because of the years you've been there, and you get put into managerial positions and hopefully ultimately partner. But there's very little training for that in my experience in the firms I was in, and it's quite expensive and difficult to access that sort of training, but you had accessed it, and that's what got us to bringing together those trainers that you knew in order to design this program. So your own experience of it.
Yeah, I won't necessarily name the firm, but when there was a change, shall we say, in branding, or a change of ownership, we went from a firm that, in my view, I actually learned one of the most valuable lessons I ever learned about managing people from probably the worst manager I've ever witnessed, who people used to physically avoid, and who sat in a room on his own for weeks on end because people thought he was, well, horrible. Actually, there were all sorts of different, he wasn't, but I learned a hugely valuable lesson off him. But there was no investment in training of soft skills, of And as you say, people at that time were promoted because they'd done the years, because they could, work the longest hours. There was often a competition of whose jacket could be on the back of a chair for the longest. Late night pizzas were almost compulsory. And then the firm changed, and actually there was a real investment made, because there was a change of leader of the business, in developing the behavioural skills, the soft skills of people right through from graduate level, from trainee right through to sort of partner. And I went through, I think I sat on the National Tax Board before I was 35, but as part of that journey, I went on effectively what was a sort of a developing directors through partners program, which was, I went on as skeptical as anybody, almost as skeptical as the Glaswegian who turned up expecting it, as in his own words, to be a load of tree-hugging shit, and leave it at that. And I left after 3 days thinking it was bloody brilliant. And my experience of that was that the training, not only helped us develop the team and the people within it, it helped develop ourselves hugely, and helped us to be able to recognize our own management styles, our own strengths and weaknesses, and it became aspirational within a national firm with 40 odd officers and 3,000 people. There was a clamour for people to get onto these courses, to do this training. A, because the feedback as people came back into the offices was that it was brilliant, but B, there was an element of, if you had 3 people who were sort of gunning to become manager, they wanted to be the one that was sent on the developing managers course, because that was a nod, obviously, that they were going to be the next in line, if you like. They were the ones that we thought had the skills to get it. So even the existence of the programs improved performance. It drove behaviours, because those that were, I guess, ambitious and motivated and understood where we were trying to get to, and we were very clear about, we had a very clear vision about what we were doing. We were very, we thought at least we were very good about sharing what that vision was, where we were along the journey. People had, we had sort of collective targets, individual targets. It was all measured, etc. But everyone was pulling in the right direction. And even if you think, I guess I was always very highly driven, motivated. And someone said something along the lines to me of, well, that's all well and good, and if you're doing brilliantly and you're hitting all of your targets, what about everybody else? What about the team that you're meant to be leading? Have you looked over your shoulder? Are they right behind you, or are they miles back? Are you having to drag them along, or actually are they right behind you, pushing you along? So lots of it was about, I guess, self-awareness, developing our own skills, but then really offering the opportunity for people right through from graduate level, or from new starters right through to partner, a process of developing their behavioural skills, because clearly the institutes deal with the technical stuff, and giving them the training and the skills to improve their own performance, improve the team's performance, and ultimately to make your lives easier, because that's actually what training is about. And it's difficult when we're busy. We tend to think, oh, well, I could show so-and-so how to do that, but that would take me longer than doing it myself. Or they've done that piece of work and it's not brilliant. I could spend some time showing them how to do it a lot better, but it'd be quicker just to change it and do it myself. And actually what you have to do, I think, is to stand back and say, no, we need to invest a bit of time, a bit of money. And what we've tried to do within Armadillo Academy and the training program is to make these kind of courses, this training available to smaller firms who frankly wouldn't be able to afford access to programs that are typically, these programs are typically the preserve of top 50 firms. The vast majority of users of these programs are top 50 legal or professional or accounting firms. What we're doing is making them available through the Armadillo network to our members, starting from the Fast Futures program, which is aimed at sort of the new joiners, right, say the graduates, and there's a handout attached to the webinar, which is the training page summary document, which people can download because it'd be a bit easier to read than these slides. But what we've got is the Fast Futures program that takes them through to sort of from pre-qualification, sort of before they even do their professional exams. We're not waiting until they're qualified or even part qualified. You can start right at the beginning, right the way through from developing managers. Obviously, business development can come in at any stage in an individual's career. As I was always a very firm believer in that your best advocates within a big firm, and it's true in a small firm as well, your best advocates of the firm are the people that spend the most time with their clients, and that's often more junior members of the team, right through to a pathway to partner program, which recognises the fact that just because you've been working your way towards partnership for a number of years doesn't mean you've necessarily accumulated all the skills and behaviours that you need to make that a success. And the pathway to partner, for example, is I think a 10-month program. So that's a significant commitment. The other programs are broken down into as little as 1 or 2 hour modules, and we'll give people much more detail on that in a separate webinar specific to the subject. But this is really about trying to improve the people around you to make you as business leaders, business owners, make your lives easier, to give them the skills to make the most of the tools that they've got, so that they aren't, what was the phrase, shelfware, Ainsley. There's no good investing your own time and effort and money in, for example, the Clarity software, and not then giving your people the skills to get the full benefit from that. And that full benefit might be monetary, it might be increased fees from clients, but it might just be actually freeing up more of your time.
Yeah, and the response you get from showing people that you're happy to invest in them. What we've tried to do, obviously, is make this affordable for the member firms. As you said, that it's usually the preserve of the top accountancy firms, top legal firms, because they needed to get enough numbers to get on a course and invest in an entire course. But what we've been able to do is work with the trainers to put together a program that allows our members to get access an awful lot easier. And we're going to do a separate webinar on this. We'll start with your own free credit initially to get you started and show you how to get your team involved in this. I was on it was the invite of Roy Linus. I was on one of his business club meetings, and he was actually using some of the Clarity tools as well. But he had a speaker on there, a well-known actor that was a client of Roy's, and the actor spoke about the fact he was trying to achieve something and was almost ready to give up with it until one person said something that showed that they believed in what the speaker was trying to do. And they said that one person believing in me made all the difference. So imagine what it does for your team to know that they're investing in you and your progress. And you said yourself, Matt, that it actually became aspirational within a large firm. And we've put this together because we believe it's the right way to help progress the individuals that work for your firm, in order to then give you more choices about how you spend your time. And you put that together with what Ainsley was talking about with the Clarity tools, and hopefully you have a team that's empowered, got the right tools, and happy to get on with the work, and you're managing the process rather than doing all the time. Just with a little bit of an eye on time, I'm going to move on to the next one, but just to confirm, we will come back to that training. It's a very important part of the Armadillo Academy offering, and we will be doing a separate webinar in due course on that. But there is a handout, as Matt said, if you want to download the handout and have an early look. So the next part is about confidence, and we've touched on it a little bit just in what we were saying most recently there. What's the behaviours of successful people, confident people, they believe in themselves and they're not afraid to try things because they feel empowered and they feel they know their subject. So if they're well trained, if you know exactly what you're doing, you're confident about the way the outcome is going to happen with a client meeting, then you feel confident. And there's a sort of internal frame of reference that can be progressed. I had a laugh with Matt about it before, that he tends to have it anyway. He doesn't really need me to say something's right. He already knows that something's right. But a lot of us are on a different kind of sliding scale of, we need external confirmation. Sorry, I went back the way I think they're on slides. So there's an internal and an external frame of reference, and once you start to get confidence with something, you tend to refer more to your own internal frame of reference. You simply know when something's right or when you're doing it right. Which brings me back to our success cycle. If you've visualized it, you can see in your mind, and you know how to achieve it, and you believe that you've got the right tools and skills to do it, then it creates that motivational loop, and the universe will come to meet you rather than you waiting on it coming to you. You meet it halfway. So our job is to help the clients see it, to help the staff see it, and then guide them. Hopefully the Clarity software gives us the tools and a process, and it's no longer left to you to take the action as you get the team involved through the training and focus our attention a bit more on the profitable work and our attention on making sure that as a firm that your time is best utilised. Successful results build certainty and belief. And happy staff produce better work. Happy, relaxed staff that know what they're trying to achieve and feel empowered produce better work. So we want to make this clear that this is not about you as the business owner, as the principal, doing all the work again. And having been through a number of networks, I felt that was something that was missing. They gave me a lot of tools. They gave us physical products to get out there and meet with clients. As Ainsley said, some of them still sitting on the shelfware. Some of them we use ourselves, but what have we forgotten? What have we not passed on to the team? What if we had a system and skilled trainers to help empower the team? So hopefully that all makes sense.
I was always a great believer, Gordon, in a previous life when I had a team, that if I made myself redundant, I'd succeeded. If we built a team that could function completely without us, that we were completely confident that we could win whatever work and throw it over our shoulder, then that was the very definition of a successful business. And we got there. We did a lot of hard work, judgment, training, being very clear on where we were trying to get to, how we were trying to get there, etc., etc. But I always thought, that the better the business, the less we would actually do. That was quite an ambition to have.
Yeah, but it probably brings us to our last point on choices, Matt, which again, you and I spoke a lot about before we designed this. And the slides that I'm using is coming from our new website that's coming soon. The work isn't linear. We spoke about the 80-20 rule previously, the Pareto principle. You don't necessarily get the same results from every hour of work you put in. And when Matt and I first spoke about this, we wanted Armadillo to be able to help you as accountants and tax professionals. And one thing that was very clear for us is we wanted to give you choices to build and design your practice and your life how you want it to be. And that answer might be slightly different for everyone. You'll be at different stages with different aims, but we wanted to add something that would empower you to make those choices. You probably remember me describing at the beginning of the webinar about my own father and the work that he took on. The human brain isn't designed to absorb all this constant breaking news and all these constant messages that are coming to us all day, every day now with the modern technology. So let's focus for a change on you. And it doesn't have to be about building to sell for retirement, make yourself redundant. You might choose to build an annuity business for yourself. You might want to help build a practice that you can pass on, or that allows you the freedom to work as and when you choose. And true wealth isn't only about money. There's much more to it than that. Freedom, family, choices. We're going to apply leverage where important. Power your team and let them understand and have input into the object of the game. Let them get involved in where you're trying to get to. And enjoy what you do. So just to clarify, you can maybe help me out here, Matt. We wanted to clarify what's included from Armadillo as we are about to introduce a new website and add additional resources. We spent an awful lot of time over the past 12 months and prior to that focusing on tax, but we want the network to be much more than that. We still have the tax offering, the tax service, regular webinars with our tax partners, tax support from myself and Matt, but also the well-being sessions, the leadership development, the training, and the tools and access to our partners. Clarity and Ainsley have very kindly made their tools available at a price that's very specific to our own members. Thank you very much for that, Ainsley. And I know that that some people are already having great success with it. As I say, I mentioned that I was on a business club meeting with one of our own members not so very long ago, and I could see how he was already feeding it into that regular access he was having with clients, planting a few seeds. So very, very encouraging. And it's about using these tools and empowering those within your team to use those tools. That ongoing support and training is there. Our contact details, which I actually meant to put on the slide and I think got disturbed at the end, but if you email us, just to clarify, if you email us at support@armadillo-support.co.uk, then both Matt and I will see it. One of us will pick it up. If you've got questions about this or anything that we've discussed, or what we offer, or how you get access to the services, how we can put you in touch with Ainsley and his team at Clarity and expand a bit more on their offering, because Ainsley's touched a bit on it today, but if we were to go through the whole of the offering, we'd be here for a very long time. There's a lot of good stuff in there that the team at Clarity would be happy to speak to you about, so we can put you in touch. So please do get in touch with us. The telephone number, I've still got the Kirkcaldy phone number. I don't think I put it on the slide, but still got the Kirkcaldy phone number that some of you will know. If you phone 01592651636, you'll get myself, and I will help with whatever questions you have, and if appropriate, point you in the right direction. And just to touch on, before we come to questions and answers, what is coming up in the immediate future. Matt and I are now doing Friday round table events, which is just an open invite to you as members to come along on the last Friday of every month and join in and speak to us about what's going on in your practice, what challenges you're having, what success you're having, speak to some of your peers and colleagues. It's been an interesting 12 months for many of us working from home, as I think possibly Ainsley is doing and Matt is doing in his basement today. So we're all having to deal with these challenges. So come along last Friday of every month and have a chat with Matt and I, just an open invitation. Speak to us about anything specifically troubling you, anything you want to discuss. We've got a webinar coming up on Tuesday the 8th of June with one of our tax partners, which is tax planning for the family business. We've got what I traditionally call mindfulness matters that I've usually done towards the end of each month, but it's going to be slightly delayed and is about to then be relaunched as the wellbeing program for your firms and for your team members. And then we will have another webinar in due course on how to claim your tax credits and get involved with the training that we've been speaking about. So I think that, believe it or not, is almost bang on time, other than any questions and answers. I'm not sure that we've had anything other that we haven't already covered. Matt, have you seen?
No, if anyone does have any questions, obviously the control panel on the right hand side of the screen, feel free to type them in there. But no, perhaps the most remarkable thing of the last an hour and a half is that we finished on time, Gordon.
There's always first time.
It shows what happens when I let you get a word in edgeways.
Well, I think considering the three of us have got so much to chat about when we do get together, I think we've done quite well to keep it pretty well in time. So thank you both. Thank you, Ainsley, for coming along and being our guest today. We're very pleased to be working with Clarity. I think people will be able to see from my own experience why I like the tools that you've put together and how you've done it, and how I believe that could help members. And hopefully, combined with our training program and ongoing support, we will help empower the member firms going forward. So thank you for your input and time today, Ainsley.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. And just wanted to say one thing, another tool for your members. We talked about not knowing where you could get to. Well, it's the same for accountants too. And if they go on our website, so clarity-hq.com/calculator, they can play with their own numbers, don't have to enter any information, completely confidential. They can play with their own numbers to their heart's content and see what potential is there for their business. And then that gives them a good idea and an ability to focus on what they're going to do to help them get there.
Very good.
What you can do to help them get there.
What the whole team are going to do to help them get there.
Exactly, including Armadillo as part of their team.
Yes, indeed.
Perfect. Okay, thank you, gents. Thank you, everybody who's come along to listen to what we have to say today. I hope you found that helpful, useful, uplifting, and we look forward to answering any questions you might have on it. As I say, by all means, get in touch with Matt and myself. Happy to answer your questions. Other than that, I'll leave you with the thought about what's coming up, and it just remains for me to say stay safe, be well, and we look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Friday the 28th of May, open invitation. If you need the contact details for that, get in touch, but we'll be sending something out shortly just to remind people. Thank you, everyone, once again. Take care. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.